Thank you, Brand. It's a pleasure seeing you.
Sandile, it's an even greater pleasure seeing you.
Oh yeah.
Because you're getting younger. So I want to find out what your recipe is.
No, thanks very much. Thanks. I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brand. You know, I've been with SAVRALA, the South African Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association, for just close on 7 years now, and it's doing great work in its lobbying work for the industry. And I know for a fact that having been involved in the automotive environment yourself for donkeys of years, we look up to yourself for guidance as well, the likes of yourself, Brand, for guidance. And I just thought I should just tease you in terms of what your views are with organizations like SAVRALA, focusing mainly on rental. Obviously, our membership is rental and the leasing community. We also have the associate membership, which comprises of OEMs and distributors that we do purchases. Over 60% of our purchases are towards those, and they form a very key, strategic partner of SAVRALA. So I thought, it would be interesting just to find out from yourself what your thoughts are with SAVRALA.
Yeah, thank you, Sandile. And my view is that SAVRALA plays an extremely important role. Certainly when I was at Toyota and at McCarthy, I experienced that firsthand. But now, the role that your organization is playing is of even greater importance, because the sustainability of your industry is almost at risk.
Please.
And it's imperative that there should be a body like SAVRALA that can represent the industry and speak with one voice. And I know that in the past you've played a very important role to ensure that the legislative environment and that the regulatory environment are conducive to you doing good business.
Correct.
So SAVRALA, in my opinion, is indispensable, and that you can mobilize your members' interests and make sure that your stakeholders do whatever they can to ensure the viability of your industry. So in my opinion, the role that SAVRALA plays is indispensable, and I'm sure that your members give you maximum support during these very, very tough times. I know that a lot of work is being done to influence the Department of Transport and SANRAL and the Airports Company.
Correct.
And continue to do it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Obviously, these have been excruciating times for our industry, particularly the rental side, which happens to fall under the tourism sector, and a huge portion of our business being the inbound side.
Yeah.
And that came to almost a standstill when the borders were closed, as you know. It's really been tough. But I think there's a lot that we've learned as well, because during this time, we've never really worked so closely, not only amongst ourselves in our lobbying effort to engage with government, but also with other stakeholders. SAVRALA belongs to also Business Unity South Africa.
Yes.
And by default, there was that formulation of general business, which is called Business for South Africa.
Yes.
We've also participated in some of those work streams to ensure, that we guide government on some of the things that they may not have looked at. Certainly, right now the focus is on recovery, which is why I think it's important from my standpoint to tap into the wisdom of yourself, for instance, to say what are the things that perhaps we should be looking at. Yes, we have our core responsibilities, which are those of lobbying on behalf of our members on various things. I mean, right now, we have ARTO, which has tremendous impact, not only on fleet owners, but also on the ordinary person. But there's a whole lot of other host of things that are brought to bear as a result of, this enemy, COVID in our lives. So, I thought it's an opportunity that, it's important for us to tap into the wisdom of, yourself, who's been around for some time, for some guidance, on some of the key things that we probably need to look at going forward.
Yeah, Sandile, my view is that SAVRALA, now more than ever before, should be absolutely needs-driven.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So the needs of your members should determine your priorities. Because I want to say again, the viability of so many of your members is at stake.
Yes.
So whatever they regard as important, you should regard, and I'm sure that's what you do, as important. So focus areas should be what can be done to increase demand levels. What can be done to ensure greater synergies? What can be done to reduce cost? So if I had to put myself in your position, I will do whatever I can to deliver tangible benefits to your members, because that is how you will retain their support.
Correct.
Because all of them, I think without exception, are fighting with their backs against the wall.
Correct.
And a priority should also be to give them hope.
Yes.
Because in these times, hope tends to be a very scarce commodity. And I think it was Mr. Mandela who said, hope is life itself.
Oh, yes.
So somehow you must keep hope alive, convince your members that these times will also pass, but obviously tough decisions need to be made, because business models in your industry have been rendered obsolete, not quite obsolete, but almost obsolete. So one has to take a fresh look, be creative, innovate, make sure that the businesses are relevant and competitive. So the role that you're playing has never been more relevant and more important.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think one of the challenges that most trade associations face is basically the demonstration of those benefits. And, like stationery, a lot of companies would, in looking at areas of saving, they'll certainly look at we're a subscription-based organization.
Yes.
So it's important for us to demonstrate,
Yeah.
the benefit, the tangible benefit. However, the advent of Corona, the pandemic, has also just helped in that, even our members have seen the power of collective,
Yes.
working collectively. I have indicated that most of our members, associate members, are anyway OEMs, and we work, and we've always had that, back-to-back close relationship with NAMSA, and we continued even much more during the pandemic, and going forward on issues like ARTO and some legislative issues that affect our industry.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you. The demonstration of the benefit is paramount, I think, right now going forward, so that at least as members, whilst we do, look at relieving them in whatever way we can, without any other source of income except what we get from the subscriptions that we get from our members. But also, we've got to be creative, as you say, and I agree totally with yourself that I think these days call for creativity in the way we look at business. We have to take a particular interest, for instance. We've got concessionaires, for instance. A lot of our members occupy, the airports, the various airports.
Yes.
And it's in our interest to have a very strategic and close relationship with the likes of AXA, for instance.
Yes.
Whilst we also are part of the tourism industry, the One Cap, we operate very much in the transport industry. So, the likes of your RFA who deal with trucks, where we bring them closer because we have a collective interest as well in terms of just ensuring that, some of the legislation doesn't burden our members, particularly financially.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree totally with yourself. But one has to be very, very, creative. In terms of education, I did some reading, and I know that you are involved in education as such. Whilst education forms part of our focus areas, but COVID presents, has presented other opportunities as well, and then and necessitated changes in the way we conduct, education as we used to in the past. And I don't know what your thinking is in that direction and being involved very much in that environment as well.
Yeah, it remains I would say, almost our number one national priority to improve the quality of education and to accelerate development and training. And I know that SAVRALA runs a number of very, very worthy programs. So I want to encourage you. I think it's a responsibility that should not be neglected. In fact, I think all organizations and businesses should make a disproportionate investment in the development of their human capital, because ultimately the quality of our human capital will determine whether we're going to move forward or not. So I support you in those endeavors, and I believe that your partnership philosophy, not only from the point of view of furthering education, but for SAVRALA to join hands with NAMSA and other progressive organizations can only benefit your members, because we have to adapt to a new world. And somehow your members need to come up with new business models that should be future-proof. And the variables are many. getting back to education, we now sort of live digitally. So how to use digital platforms to deliver more effective training and education. And I see so many organizations going through a fascinating learning curve. And I'm sure you are in exactly the same position.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brand. You know, the challenges that have been brought about by COVID, obviously, I mean, I think those are fairly known, and which is why right now there's a need for almost every sector to relook at how they conduct business going forward. And we found ourselves, for instance, for the first time, we've never had to, you know, one of our key measurements, for instance, is utilization.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, we ran out of space to park our vehicles during that period. And right now, as we move forward, because, you know, whilst we work pretty closely with the likes of Tourism Business Council, and I sit in that board as well, and we were part of the lobbying to, you know, get the borders open, but responsibly. We formed part of the safety protocols that were formulated to assure any would-be visitor to South Africa that at least, you know, the safety protocols, and, you know, they are safe to come and visit our beautiful country. But there is a need. We cannot expect perhaps those huge numbers like this overnight. So there's a need for a lot of our members. Well, it's a competitive environment, obviously, I think, with any other association. But there's a need for our members to relook at their models. And where possible, you know, looking at the various trends, which is what the likes of Lightstone are doing for both our industries, both NAMSA and SAVRALA. It can help as well in just getting the individual members as well. You know, whilst we're looking at the overall, you know, trends, for instance, but to look at themselves and see how best can they change, you know, to meet the current needs, for instance, with the impact that the pandemic has had on us. But I totally agree with you. Education remains a focus, and as we move into the digital environment, perhaps there's got to be much more focus and emphasis on digital approach in education, excuse me. But thank you very much, Brandon. Now, I'm just thinking now that we obviously would like to have, as, you know, as, I don't want to use the word many, but the reality is that, you know, the more membership, the better for us. Whilst we have key members that represent perhaps 60% of the total industry, but you do have those that are out there, that are still out there and paddling their own canoes, as it were, which is something that won't work. And it's important, you know. I know that I keep on ramping on this one, but it's important that you know, that they hear from, you know, the likes of yourself, who are beacons of hope, to, you know, encourage them to come through and find themselves a home in organizations like SAVRALA, for instance.
Yeah, I do want to encourage them, because this is a tough and a very competitive world. And we need to adapt to a new sort of normal. And virtually all businesses need help and must be in a position to tap into the collective wisdom and experience of other businesses that are similar. So it makes sense for businesses in the same industry, and I know that the businesses are very competitive, but when it comes to matters of common interest, they must come and join hands and play a constructive role for the benefit of all.
Correct.
Because that is the only way we will get through this crisis, and I'm sure that all your members, benefit from hearing the views of other companies, getting different perspectives, because we can't just continue doing what we used to do. The future won't be an extension of the past. And the disruption will continue. And what can be done and what should be done to make our businesses future-proof? So all businesses need to gain more knowledge. All businesses need to zoom out and re-examine strategies. And there's no time to waste, because the pressure is there.
Yes.
And for them to survive, they need to move quickly and decisively and in the right direction. And SAVRALA can assist them in the attainment of those objectives.
Correct. There's something you mentioned there, which, that sort of phrase, you almost get it from church. But I think it's quite profound, that we have to ensure that we give our members hope. It's quite a popular phrase, in the religion community, where, I think, but in our case, to ensure you give members hope demands that you extend yourself. And in extending yourself, I'll make a typical example. There are certain things that could be taken for granted. Things like your term T's and C's, as we call them. And I just realized going through a publication in the US, how their current T's and C's of that industry have been affected by the likes of, by the pandemic.
Yes.
So there's almost, one needs to relook at the T's and C's. And that sort of guidance needs to be done at an industry level. It helps out even the smaller guys. So all of that also impacts financially, in that, you've got, on the one hand, you want to make it reachable to any would-be member, but there's also a potential increase in costs, because as you make sure that you want to increase that hope, and that hope can only it requires perhaps investment to ensure that hope is demonstrated. Now, it's just a comment, and as you said that, these are some of the things there.
But you're making a very important point, and that is to just hope without taking any action means nothing. So I believe that one should also do hope. Hope is a verb as well. So one can only do hope by rolling up one's sleeves, and it's clear that SAVRALA is doing exactly that.
Definitely.
And you are doing your best to make a difference, and you are not afraid of the future, and you stare realities in the face, and you move forward and you are doing it in a constructive manner, and you make plans and you take initiative, and then eventually things will start happening. There's a wonderful quote by Helen Keller about hope, and Helen Keller said, "Hope sees the invisible, and hope feels the intangible, and hope achieves the impossible." And if we look at some of the realities today, in order to survive, we must almost achieve the impossible. Yeah. But the one thing is certain, we can't give up.
Oh yes, oh yes.
We must hang in and remain hopeful. And you spoke about a beacon of light. Your organization, SAVRALA, is a beacon of light to your members, and if you continue to deliver tangible benefits to them, then SAVRALA will flourish.
Thank you very much. I'm just reminded of our payoff line, we're saying steering industry standards, and reflected here.
Yeah.
And I think we need to really tear that apart and make sure that we make them as palpable, you use the word tangible, as possible to our members.
Yeah.
It's a great responsibility in the new norm that you spoke about. It's a great responsibility to make that hope tangible, as it were, to our members. But I really, we are going to be knocking at your door as an organization. We are at the moment in the process of putting together a commemorative magazine, and that basically takes the history of SAVRALA, some of the individuals that we've managed to even interview in there. Are those you've dealt with in your past. And it just dawned on me as well, because that it would be a pleasure to have you feature there as well, just as we are building it up to launch it sometime later in the year. And certainly you should hear from me, from our editor, for an interview of sorts that will make sure that you are included as well. Because we certainly look up to yourself.
No, thank you. I feel very honored and very privileged, although I don't think I deserve such nice words.
Yeah, Brand. One of the key, programs, and it's a very important surveys, particularly to our associate members, which is called the Motor Manufacturer of the Year, and it's called MOTI. It's a very important one, even to our members as well, who basically rate them on various criteria throughout the year, and then it culminates into just these awards for the year. And I thought, I think it's important, particularly as it come out of, we have just recently made announcements, and I must say also it was for the first time. This has always been a beautiful dinner occasion once a year, but because of COVID, it was held it was an impersonal one. We just made an announcement via Zoom. But I thought, let me just perhaps find out from yourself, because that really has helped not only the OEMs, but it has helped because after the, we had what we call, for instance, the MOTI review, where we review a whole lot of things that may have gone wrong. And as a result of that as well, we've seen the establishments of things like technical subcommittee that works with the various OEMs, for instance, and distributors. So your view on such, a survey for the industry?
I'm very supportive of it because to give people who deliver good service recognition, it serves a very good purpose. It encourages them. It does their morale a lot of good, in particular during these very difficult times. So the proviso is obviously that the people who participate in such an awards program or competition should have confidence that the criteria and the rules are fair. But I am convinced that your program enjoys a high level of confidence because you've refined it over many years. But it's a good thing to recognize excellence. I'm sure that excellence is one of your key values, and we are in a competitive industry, and for that reason, when an OEM wins a SAVRALA reward or award, they celebrate. They see it in an important light, and I can remember in my Toyota days how happy we were when Toyota got the Manufacturer of the Year award. So it's a source of inspiration. It is well-deserved recognition. It's an accolade that OEMs will be very proud of. So no, I'm supportive.
Thank you very much. We have made sure that at least no aspersions are casted on the quality. For instance, we've involved the OEMs as well. Just recently, in fact, at the beginning of the year, just before the first round, we went through quite a rigorous review of the questionnaires, and those involved not just SAVRALA or shall I say the SAVRALA management only, but it involved both, the rental, the leasing, together with the OEM. So, and I think we also insist that these questionnaires are conducted by a panel of management, so that it's not an individual. Because if I don't like brand, I could, understand. So, but certainly I have no question. But one last perhaps question that I'd like to ask you, which I believe very, very important. There's an imperative that has lingered on. It's almost forms. It's almost a permanent part of our focus areas. And that is that of transformation. And in the new environment that we're going through, and I thought I should just ask you what your feelings are with, transformation. What are your views regarding transformation? Because it's as I say, it's almost a national imperative. It's not just SAVRALA, and recognizing the impact it could have potentially on the country. What are your views in this new environment?
I'm pleased that you're raising it because, I've heard people saying, we're in such tough times, let's abandon transformation. And my view is the exact opposite. I believe transformation is a moral, a strategic, and a business imperative. We cannot, even during tough times, ignore the realities of South Africa. We had a political system that discriminated in the most severe terms against black South Africans. As a result, we live in a country where the distribution of wealth is among the most unequal in the world. And apart from the moral side of the equation, should we not address the unequal distribution of wealth, should we not integrate black South Africans into the mainstream economy, we will create the breeding ground for social unrest on a massive scale. So the last thing we should do is to neglect transformation. And we shouldn't do it because there's legislation compelling us to do it. We should do it because it's the right thing to do. And in my experience, it makes an enormous difference to one's business because there's so much richness in our diversity.
Wow.
And at McCarthy, I experienced firsthand the value that was added by our empowerment partners. So I see it in a very positive light, and I care deeply about the country, and I believe the acceleration of empowerment, of transformation is necessary in order to safeguard our future.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Brand. It's really been a pleasure. I can't help but get reminded that when I worked in Toyota some years back, I was a lot slimmer than this then, and I was in field operations, and one of the areas I was responsible for outside of the Imperial Group was the northwestern Botswana,
Yes.
Dada, and all his dealerships,
Yes.
right up into Francistown. And I recall you writing a memo because I had had an incident with a dealer principal that wouldn't accept me. Not because he didn't. I think the farmers had a problem with him.
Yes.
Sitting across the table. But we've come a long way as a country, and because and I'm talking the 87, somewhere
Yes.
around there then. We've come a long way as a country. However, COVID has uncovered a whole lot of things.
Yes.
I think, we've heard it, we've seen it as well, and which indicates that we have a long way to go. And I believe that, transformation is very, very key. And SAVRALA, basically also just has transformation as almost a permanent part of our focus areas. Thank you very much.
I commend you on that, and it should remain like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandile.